There is a city that was built on the promise of the impossible, a city that rose from the desert in a matter of decades, constructing the tallest buildings on Earth, the largest shopping destinations ever conceived, the most extravagant hotels the world had ever seen. A city that told the world, come here, spend here, dream here, because nothing here will ever stop. That city is Dubai, and for a long time the world believed it. But something has shifted. Quietly at first, then with growing urgency, the landmarks that defined Dubai's golden age have begun to go dark. Some fell silent for what their owners called renovations. Others closed without explanation. Others still were shuttered by forces that no amount of architectural ambition or marketing budget could hold back. One by one, the icons that made Dubai the most photographed city on Earth have been closing their doors, dimming their lights, and leaving behind a silence that no one in the emirate was prepared for. This is not a video about minor inconveniences or seasonal maintenance schedules. This is a video about what happens when the most ambitious tourism machine ever assembled begins to show the cracks that ambition alone cannot repair. It is a story about what happens when a city built entirely on perception confronts a reality it did not choose. And one of the entries on this list will surprise you, not because it is obscure, but because it is the most recognizable symbol Dubai has ever produced. And its closure sent a message that every investor, every tourist, and every analyst in the world was forced to hear. If you find this kind of deep investigative storytelling useful, take a moment to subscribe. This channel covers the forces reshaping cities, economies, and industries in real time. And what is happening in Dubai right now is one of the most consequential stories on Earth. This is the top 5 Dubai iconic landmarks closing down, and the question the whole world is asking, is Dubai collapsing? Number 5. The Dubai Fountain goes silent. To understand what the Dubai Fountain meant to this city, you have to understand what it was built to represent. Installed at the base of the Burj Khalifa, stretching across a man-made lake in the heart of downtown Dubai, the Dubai Fountain was not simply an attraction. It was a declaration. Erected by Emaar Properties, the company most responsible for reshaping Dubai's urban identity, the fountain was, at the time of its inauguration, the largest performing fountain on Earth, a title it still holds. Spanning over 900 feet in length and capable of shooting water jets more than 500 feet into the air, it choreographed water, light, and music into a nightly spectacle that drew millions of visitors each year from every corner of the globe. For many tourists, it was their first memory of Dubai and often their most lasting one. Throughout the 2010s and into the early 2020s, the Dubai Fountain operated as one of the most photographed outdoor attractions in the world. Emaar reported that the promenade surrounding the fountain attracted tens of millions of footfall annually, making it a critical commercial engine not just for tourism, but for the retail and dining ecosystem built around Dubai Mall and the Burj Khalifa Plaza. The fountain was free to watch from the promenade, which made it uniquely democratic in a city defined by premium experiences, a public spectacle that felt both intimate and monumental. It was for Dubai what the Eiffel Tower is for Paris, an image inseparable from the city itself. Then, in April 2025, Emaar announced that the fountain would go dark. Not permanently, but the closure would last 5 full months, spanning the summer season and stretching into October. The reasons cited were structural. The floor of the fountain basin had developed cracks over years of continuous operation, and the entire waterproofing system required a complete overhaul. New concrete treatment was applied, new insulation and primer layers were installed, and the giant digital screens that surrounded the lake were removed entirely during the process. For 5 months, the iconic lake sat drained, empty, and fenced off, a surreal image for a city that had staked so much of its identity on perpetual spectacle. The fountain reopened on October 1st, 2025, and Emaar celebrated the return with a major public show. But the story did not end there. Within weeks, the company announced that a second phase of renovations was already planned for early 2026. Another closure, another period of silence for the attraction that had been described by the Emirates' own tourism authorities as the heartbeat of downtown Dubai. The 2026 renovation would add new choreographic elements and technological features, restructuring the shows in ways that Emaar described as transformational. But behind the optimistic language, what was emerging was a pattern. The fountain, once presented as a permanent wonder, was now showing its age, requiring repeated and costly interventions just to maintain its basic function. For the hundreds of businesses along the downtown promenade, the restaurants, the souvenir shops, the boat tour operators, the photography services, the closures represented direct revenue loss during peak visitor periods. Tour guides who had built entire walking itineraries around the evening fountain show were forced to restructure their offerings. Hotels in the downtown area reported that packages centered on the fountain view had to be repriced or suspended. And for the broader ecosystem of Dubai tourism, the repeated closure of its most symbolically powerful outdoor attraction was a quiet but significant signal. Even the landmarks that Dubai presented as eternal were fragile beneath the surface. What the Dubai fountain represents in this larger story is the beginning of an uncomfortable reckoning. The infrastructure of spectacle is expensive to maintain. The promises written in water and light have a cost that eventually comes due. And when the most visible symbol of Dubai's abundance goes dark, it forces a city that has long refused to acknowledge vulnerability to confront something it was never designed to face: the weight of its own ambition. Number 4. Dubai Parks and Resorts, the theme park reckoning. When Dubai Parks and Resorts opened its doors in December 2016, it was announced with the kind of superlatives that Dubai had made its native language: the largest integrated theme park destination in the Middle East. 4 world-class parks on a single site covering 25 million square feet. Attractions licensed from DreamWorks Animation, Columbia Pictures, Lionsgate, and the global Legoland network. A Polynesian-themed hotel, a retail and dining district called Riverland, and a scale of ambition that positioned the Emirate as the entertainment capital of the entire Gulf region. The pitch was simple and seductive. Dubai was no longer just a place to shop and photograph skyscrapers. It was now a full-scale family destination that could compete directly with Orlando and the great theme park capitals of the world. The early years were difficult. Attendance figures consistently fell short of projections. The location, far from central Dubai, along Sheikh Zayed Road near Jebel Ali, created logistical friction for tourists who were already navigating a city that required long taxi rides between major attractions. The summer heat, which routinely exceeded 112 degrees Fahrenheit, limited operational days and suppressed family visits during the months when Western tourist families, the core target audience, were most likely to travel. Financial losses mounted. The company that operated the parks, publicly listed on the Dubai financial market, reported years of challenging earnings as it struggled to reach the occupancy levels that made the economics of a large theme park destination viable. The most dramatic signal of the reckoning came in 2023 when Bollywood Parks Dubai, one of the 4 original parks and the first theme park in the world dedicated entirely to Indian cinema, permanently closed its gates. The closure was framed quietly, presented as a strategic pivot that would allow the site to be repurposed for a Real Madrid-themed attraction announced in partnership with the Spanish football club. Real Madrid World eventually opened in phases across 2024 and 2025, replacing Bollywood's Bollywood nostalgia with football nostalgia. But the underlying message was impossible to ignore. One of the flagship parks in the Middle East's largest entertainment destination had failed and been permanently retired. Then came the events of early 2026. As regional conflict escalated dramatically across the Middle East, the UAE's National Emergency Management Authority issued guidance that triggered precautionary closures across major public gathering points. Legoland Dubai, Motion Gate Dubai, Real Madrid World, and Riverland Dubai all shut their gates. The closures, described at the time as temporary safety measures, coincided with a period in which the broader Dubai tourism ecosystem was already under enormous pressure. Visitors who had booked multi-day theme park passes arrived to find the destination closed. Families who had planned holidays specifically around the parks were redirected to other properties or offered refund options. The operational disruption, layered on top of years of financial underperformance, created a portrait of a destination that had never quite found its footing and was now facing its most severe test yet. For the thousands of workers employed at Dubai Parks and Resorts, ride operators, food and beverage staff, costumed character performers, ticketing agents, hotel housekeeping staff, the closures and the broader tourism downturn created a precarious income situation. Many of these workers were migrants from South Asia and Southeast Asia, employed on commission or low fixed salaries that depended on visitor volume to reach livable levels. When the parks fell silent, so did their earnings. What Dubai Parks and Resorts represents in this story is a cautionary portrait of entertainment infrastructure that was conceived at the scale of ambition rather than the scale of demand. The Middle East's largest theme park complex has never filled its own promise, and as the external pressures on Dubai's tourism ecosystem intensify, the question of whether this entertainment destination will survive intact or whether more parks will follow Bollywood parks into permanent closure is no longer theoretical. Number 3. The Dubai Mall's retail exodus. The Dubai Mall was not merely a shopping centre, it was a thesis statement. When it opened in November 2028, it was, by total area, the largest mall on earth, a claim that Dubai's government and Emaar Properties repeated with evident pride in virtually every piece of promotional material produced over the following decade and a half. More than 1,200 stores, an indoor ice rink, a full-scale aquarium and underwater zoo, a virtual reality park, a connection by direct underground walkway to the Burj Khalifa. The Dubai Mall was a city within a city, a retail universe that attracted more annual visitors than any shopping destination on earth, regularly recording figures exceeding 80 million footfall per year at its peak. For international brands, securing a flagship location inside Dubai Mall was a statement of global ambition. The mall was a living advertisement for Dubai itself. The global retail brands that anchored the Dubai Mall and the adjacent Mall of the Emirates built their Gulf strategies around a core assumption that Dubai would continue to attract a growing volume of high-spending international tourists indefinitely. The business model was not just about selling products. It was about selling experience, the luxury of walking through a world-class mall in a city that felt like the center of everything. That model worked extraordinarily well throughout the 2010s, when Gulf retail was growing faster than almost any market on earth, and when Dubai was successfully positioning itself as the world's most visited city for international tourism. The cracks began to appear in late 2025. West Elm, the American modern furniture retailer operated in the UAE by the Al Shaya Group, closed its Dubai Mall flagship and then shut across the wider region. Pottery Barn and Pottery Barn Kids, similarly operated by Al Shaya, announced closures across multiple UAE locations, including Dubai Hills Mall and Mirdif City Centre. The departures were framed as commercial decisions, but they reflected a structural truth. The cost of maintaining premium retail space in Dubai's flagship malls had become unsustainable for brands that were not generating the visitor volumes they once could count on. Then, in the first quarter of 2026, the retail crisis became acute. As regional conflict disrupted tourism flows and triggered travel warnings from multiple governments, foot traffic at Dubai's major malls fell sharply. At the Mall of the Emirates, revenues for some luxury brands dropped between 30% and 50% compared to the same period the previous year. During the month of Ramadan, which ended in mid-March 2026, sales at both the Dubai Mall and the Mall of the Emirates fell by more than 60% year-on-year. Italian luxury retailers with significant Dubai operations reported sales declines of between 35% and 40% relative to pre-conflict levels. Harvey Nichols, the iconic British luxury department store with a flagship presence at the Mall of the Emirates, saw foot traffic collapse by 57%. The consequences for global luxury conglomerates were immediate and visible. Shares in LVMH, Hermès, and Richemont fell between 4% and 6.5% as investors processed the implications of Middle East store closures and disrupted travel flows. Kering, the parent company of Gucci, temporarily closed its stores across the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar and suspended all executive travel to the region. Chalhoub Group, which operates 900 stores for brands ranging from Versace and Jimmy Choo to Sephora across the Gulf, confirmed closures in some markets while maintaining skeleton staffing in others. Apple stores in Dubai closed temporarily. What the retail exodus from Dubai Mall represents is the fragility of a commercial ecosystem built entirely on tourism perception. The moment the perception of Dubai as a safe, easy, accessible destination begins to shift, even temporarily, the entire commercial infrastructure built on that perception becomes vulnerable almost simultaneously. The Dubai Mall was never just a place to shop. It was a confidence index for the entire city. And when the confidence wavered, the malls emptied faster than anyone had prepared for. Number 2. Ain Dubai. The world's tallest wheel falls silent. It took years longer than planned. It survived a pandemic, multiple construction delays, and the kind of engineering challenges that would have permanently grounded a less determined project. But when Ain Dubai finally opened on October 21st, 2021, it delivered on the scale of its promise in a way that was difficult to argue with. Standing 250 meters tall, twice the height of the London Eye, it became, instantly, the tallest observation wheel on Earth. Its 48 climate-controlled cabins, capable of holding up to 1,750 passengers simultaneously, offered views across the Palm Jumeirah, the Marina skyline, and the open expanse of the Arabian Gulf that were genuinely unlike anything available anywhere else in the city. Ain Dubai was not just a ride, it was a new geography, a vantage point that reorganized how visitors understood and related to Dubai's physical space. Blue Waters Island, the purpose-built leisure destination off the Jumeirah Beach residence coastline that Ain Dubai anchors, was conceived as a new urban centre, a place where the observation wheel would draw visitors who would then spread across the island's hotels, restaurants, retail spaces, and entertainment venues, including Madame Tussauds Dubai, which opened on the island's ground level. The model was coherent and commercially logical. A signature attraction of global magnitude would function as a gravitational centre, pulling spending across an entire neighbourhood. And for a period it worked. Ain Dubai became one of Dubai's most photographed new icons, its illuminated wheel visible from across the city skyline on clear nights. Then, in early 2026, the wheel stopped turning. Ain Dubai closed without any public explanation being offered. The attraction's official social media channels posted only a brief notice acknowledging the temporary closure and directing visitors with existing bookings to contact customer service for rescheduling or refund assistance. No cause was given. No timeline was specified. The silence around the closure was, in some ways, louder than any announcement could have been. What was happening on the ground around Ain Dubai at that moment told a more complete story than any official statement. At the Jumeirah Beach Residence Promenade, normally one of the most densely populated tourist corridors in the entire city, lined with restaurants, water sports operators, and beach clubs, workers described days of zero customers. A jet ski rental operator recounted going entire days without a single booking. Souvenir vendors reported no sales. The restaurant terraces that overlooked the water sat deserted. Madame Tussauds, located at the base of the stopped wheel, was offering significant discounts to attract even modest visitor numbers. The promenade, which at peak season could feel genuinely difficult to navigate because of the crowds, had taken on the character of an abandoned film set. The World Travel and Tourism Council estimated that the broader regional crisis was costing the Middle East $600 million per day in lost visitor spending. In the UAE specifically, tourism accounted for nearly 13% of gross domestic product in 2025 and supported approximately 925,000 jobs, the vast majority of them held by migrant workers from South and Southeast Asia. Many of those workers were paid on commission structures tied directly to visitor volume. When Ain Dubai stopped and the promenade around it emptied, the economic shock was not absorbed by institutional balance sheets alone. It was felt immediately and personally by the most economically precarious workers in the system. The image of a motionless Ain Dubai, a wheel designed to never stop, built to be seen from miles away, engineered to rotate continuously as a visual proof of Dubai's perpetual energy, became, in those weeks of early 2026, an accidental and devastating symbol. A city that had built its identity on constant, visible, kinetic momentum had fallen still. The largest observation wheel on Earth was not observing anything, and the silence it broadcast was heard far beyond Dubai. Number 1. The Burj Al Arab closes its doors. There are buildings that are famous, and then there are buildings that are synonymous with the entire identity of a city, a country, and an era. The Burj Al Arab is that second kind of building. Opened in December 1999 on an artificial island just off the Jumeirah coastline, the Burj Al Arab was the structure that told the world Dubai existed, not just as a place on a map, but as a concept, a projection, an argument about what human ambition and petrochemical wealth could produce when pointed in the same direction. Its sail-shaped silhouette, rising 321 meters above the Arabian Gulf, became one of the most recognized architectural images on Earth. For more than 2 decades, it was the postcard, the screensaver, the establishing shot that said, "This is Dubai," the hotel's original designers. At the firm, Atkins created not just a building but a self-contained symbol system. The sail shape was deliberate, evoking both a dhow, the traditional vessel of the Gulf's trading and pearling culture, and a full-masted modern vessel pointed toward the horizon. The Burj Al Arab was positioned on its own island to ensure it could be seen from all angles without obstruction, a piece of urban theatre as much as engineering. Its interior, designed with a maximalist chromatic intensity that reflected the tastes of the late 1990s, was divided into 202 duplex suites, all facing the sea. It was classified as a 7-star hotel, a designation that did not formally exist in any hospitality rating system, but that captured something true about the experience it was attempting to deliver. The Burj Al Arab was not trying to compete with other luxury hotels. It was trying to exist in a category of its own. For 26 years, it succeeded. The Burj Al Arab became the single most commercially powerful image in Dubai's history, generating billions of dollars worth of earned media through its omnipresence in travel photography, luxury advertising, and global architectural discourse. To stay there was expensive beyond most people's comprehension. To photograph it from the outside was free and universal. The hotel functioned simultaneously as an elite destination for the very wealthy and as a public monument for everyone else, a building that belonged in the cultural imagination to the whole world, even if only a small fraction could afford to enter it. Then, in 2026, the Burj Al Arab announced it would close for an 18-month refurbishment. The renovation would be led by Paris-based interior architect Tristan Auer and carried out in phases, but the scope of the work required a full closure, the first in the hotel's entire operational history. Guests with existing reservations were offered alternative accommodations at neighbouring Jumeirah properties. The framing from the hotel's management was careful and confident. This was a long-planned update, a necessary investment, a modernization appropriate to the building's continued status as one of the world's premier luxury destinations. But the timing was impossible to separate from the broader crisis enveloping Dubai's hospitality sector. In the weeks surrounding the announcement, Dubai's luxury hotels, including the Atlantis The Palm, the Jumeirah Beach Hotel, and dozens of other flagship properties, were reporting booking declines of as much as 40%. Travel warnings from multiple governments had been issued advising citizens against non-essential travel to the UAE. Major international airlines had suspended or dramatically reduced routes into Dubai International Airport. The regional conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran had produced missile and drone activity that had reached Emirati airspace, with at least one confirmed strike on the Fairmont Palm Hotel on the Palm Jumeirah and reported damage to a property in Dubai Creek Harbour. The Burj Al Arab itself had sustained minor damage from debris linked to intercepted drone activity earlier in the year, a detail that the hotel's management had not publicly connected to the renovation announcement, but which hovered over it as an unavoidable context. Tourism revenue projections for the region in 2026 had been dramatically reversed. Figures that had originally anticipated the Middle East reaching $207 billion in tourism receipts for the year were rendered academic as the conflict accelerated a collapse in visitor arrivals. Dubai, which had welcomed nearly 19.6 million international visitors in 2025, was watching that number fall in real time. Hotels that normally operated at near full occupancy during peak season were slashing rates to attract domestic UAE residents just to partially fill their rooms. Against this backdrop, the closure of the Burj Al Arab carried a weight that no renovation announcement could fully contain. This was not a fountain being upgraded or a theme park performing below targets. This was the building that had invented modern Dubai's global identity, the structure that had been used for over 2 decades as irrefutable visual evidence that Dubai was a success story, a safe destination, a place worth travelling to from any point on Earth. Its silence was not a renovation. It was a punctuation mark in a sentence that Dubai had never wanted written. For the migrant workers, service industry employees, taxi drivers, tour operators, photographers, and small business owners who had built their livelihoods around the gravitational pull of the Burj Al Arab and the Jumeirah coastline, the closure was a direct economic shock in a moment when shocks were already arriving from every direction simultaneously. For global investors watching the UAE's commercial property and hospitality sectors, it was a signal that even the most indestructible assets in Dubai's portfolio were not immune from the forces reshaping the region. And for the hundreds of millions of people around the world who had never visited Dubai, but who carried the image of that sail-shaped silhouette in their minds as shorthand for ambition and modernity, the news that the Burj Al Arab had gone dark carried an emotional resonance that no balance sheet could fully quantify. The Burj Al Arab closing its doors is not the end of Dubai, but it is the most powerful symbol of something ending, the era in which Dubai could present itself as permanently exempt from the conditions that govern everywhere else on Earth. What do 5 closures tell us? Taken individually, each entry on this list has a plausible, manageable explanation. A fountain needs repairs. A theme park adjusts its portfolio. Retail brands rationalize their footprints. A Ferris wheel undergoes precautionary safety checks. An iconic hotel undertakes a long overdue renovation. These are, in isolation, the kinds of operational decisions that occur in every major tourism destination on Earth, continuously and without alarm. But when they occur simultaneously in the same city within the same compressed period of months, they stop being isolated operational decisions and start being a pattern. And patterns in the history of great cities that have bet everything on a single dominant identity are worth taking seriously. What this pattern reveals about Dubai is not that the city is collapsing. Dubai has demonstrated, repeatedly across its short and dramatic history, an ability to absorb crises and restructure its way through them. It survived the 2008 financial crisis, which nearly bankrupted its government and required an emergency intervention from Abu Dhabi. It survived the COVID-19 pandemic, which shuttered its tourism sector for months and tested its entire economic model. Each time, it reconstructed itself with remarkable speed and emerged making larger claims than before. But what this moment reveals is something deeper than a single crisis. It reveals the structural vulnerability of a city that built its entire global identity on a single fragile proposition. The proposition that Dubai was always open, always safe, always spectacular, and always worth the journey. The moment that proposition is genuinely questioned, even temporarily, the entire system of value that rests on top of it becomes unstable at once. The fountain goes dark, and the promenade loses its anchor. The mall empties, and the luxury ecosystem loses its oxygen. The wheel stops turning, and the workers paid on commission lose their income. The icon closes, and the confidence that made the whole project credible wavers. The deeper structural truth that these 5 closures point toward is this: cities that define themselves through spectacle must maintain the spectacle at all costs, or else risk the revelation that the spectacle was always more fragile than it appeared. Dubai's extraordinary achievement over the past 4 decades has been to make spectacle feel like permanence, to make the temporary feel eternal. What 2026 has done through the combination of geopolitical shock, accumulated infrastructure fatigue, and the sudden silence of landmarks that were never supposed to fall quiet is pierced that illusion in a way that may take years to fully repair. The workers losing income on deserted promenades, the tourist families arriving to find their planned attractions closed, the global luxury investors reassessing whether the Middle East's brightest performer can sustain that status through a period of regional instability. The migrant workers earning 3,000 dirhams a month who came to Dubai for safety and are now unsure whether they can afford to stay. These are the human realities that accumulate behind the architectural symbols. And they matter more than any renovation timeline or official statement of confidence. Dubai is not collapsing. But Dubai is being asked, perhaps for the first time in its modern life, to prove that it is something more than its own image. That is the most difficult test any city built on perception can face. And what happens next? Whether the landmarks reopen to the crowds they once commanded, whether the tourists return with the same confidence they carried before, whether the workers find their commissions restored and their incomes stabilized, will determine not just Dubai's future, but the future of every city that has chosen to build its identity on the permanent promise of the spectacular. Now it is your turn. Which of these 5 closures surprised you the most? Did the Burj Al Arab entry change the way you think about Dubai's moment? Or did you see something like this coming long before anyone else admitted it? Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. The world is watching Dubai right now, and your perspective is part of that conversation.